All right, thank you. Welcome to our third poetry reading for AvantAppalachia. My name is Sabne Raznik. Our co-host, running all the bells and whistles in the back, is our co-editor, Dave Sykes. And we are celebrating National Poetry Month this evening with a stellar lineup. We have Robbi Nester from California, Amy Baskin from Portland, Oregon, I think, and two poets from Lexington, Kentucky area, Christopher McCurry and Leatha Kendrick. I'm very excited about this lineup. I have been a fan of all of these poets for several years, so I'm excited to hear all of them read tonight. We will start out with Robbi, and we'll let her have the floor.
It will help for me to unmute myself first. It's nice to be here. I'm going to start out with three ekphrastic poems. Ekphrastic poetry is poetry that is inspired by other artworks. It can be artworks of any genre, but these happen to be visual art, photography, and painting. For the first two, I have images that I'll share. For the third, I'll put a link in the chat because the image is online. And okay, I'll start with Disquiet. Okay. And let's see, I guess I need to share the screen first. Oh, I just realized that I'm going to have to, I can't share the screen and read the document from my computer. I'm sorry about that.
Can you show us the picture and then read?
I can do that, and I've just printed it as well.
Oh, okay.
So I'm going to share the screen. So there it is. That's a photograph by Kylie Spar. She's a really interesting artist, and you can find a lot of her work online. Disquiet. On the ocean floor, sleeping groupers camouflage themselves as rocks, cocoon in clouds of sand and mucus, spun out of the substance of their bodies, as spiders' spinnerets let down a line of silk. I'm like that, like the whelk within its fortress of a shell, shielded in a vaporous swirl. It doubles as a dress of white chiffon, inverted parachute that spirals around my body like vanilla soft serve, ribbon of cream in coffee. When I feel threatened, the dress sets up its own internal wind and weather, swallows me whole. At the first sign of threat, it automatically inflates. I take flight on milky tides of moonbeams, streamers of phantom light. Okay. Now I need to print the next one so I can read it to you. No. Where is it? This is the image for Woman with Iguanas. After the Iguana or Benevolent Dragon by Holly Wilmoth. Perhaps there are crickets in her hair. This woman wearing a hood of lizards, face framed by their clawed toes, tails crossed beneath her chin like the roots of orchids. The lizards clamber up her shoulders grasp her hair as though it were their customary vines, the luckiest or the quickest perching on her crown like trapeze artists balancing on a narrow ledge. No wonder her expression seems annoyed. No woman wants to be a jungle, every inch alive, the unrelenting green of walking palm, pot-bellied barraconda. She knows explorers will arrive to cut down trees and turn them into cash, to capture wide-winged morphos, loud hyacinth macaws, to plunder all she has and leave her bare and brown. This next one, I'll just share the link. So I'm going to put it in chat. It's called Her Complaint, and it's after In the Distance, a painting by Andrea Couch. Something's always rising, whether sun or wind or sudden flames flaring in the old oak after a storm. Just now, more loaves are proofing in the oven, dough unfolding, doubling, so many mouths, all of them hungry. The world's voracious, and I must feed these hungers with these hands, this body, kneading, rolling out dough. Even at night, after the baking's done, no rest. I am kneaded in my turn, the soft mounds of my breast, my belly, always making something new out of the substance I've been given, rising to the task. The rest of the poems are not ekphrastic, so we don't have to do that anymore, which is a good thing. My next one will be Mermaid to Woman. In the ocean's wavering light, seen from above, her body wears a human form, its crests and hollows womanly. And yet the mimicry remains imperfect, her shape resembling the swell and sudden falling off of breakers in a storm. Her striped teeth, those of a parrotfish, suitable for tearing flesh, dorsal fin of frill between sharp shoulder blades, wild octopus eyes. All her life, she sang ship straight into the rocks, but could not help pitying the sailors far from home, drawn by voices that promised so much. A predator in love with her prey, she envies their shapely calves, longs to enfold them in her own strong thighs, to scissor the waves and step out on shore. She's only held their drowned and swollen bodies. Just once, she wants to touch their living skin, to scrape the glittering scales from her long arms, her hands. She would give up anything, her sweet voice, bright carpet of corals and anemones, duets with whales, to be one of those alien others, striding the green world. Okay, now I'm going to shift subject matter and style to some point of view poems. Well, that was sort of a point of view poem, but they don't involve women this time necessarily. This poem's called Perspective. Sometimes in winter, I sit on the red bench under the sycamore, remembering spring, the faint green fluorescence of the earliest leaves, almost a rumor, then the brash unfolding, the tree sifting sunlight through its branches, hoarding its riches in the roots. Though it cannot be discerned, all trees, crowned with moonlight, grow toward the brightest stars. In autumn, the seeds come coptering to the ground in their hundreds, where they send out cautious roots. In this cold season, the bench too remembers that before the shaved planks, sweet smell of sawdust, it once was a tree, holding sunlight deep underground, awaiting its next incarnation. All right. My next one, I guess most of you are old enough to remember records, okay? When people had records, and they used to be called LPs, long playing phonograph records. So this poem is called LP, and it's from the point of view of an LP. The needle drops and music rises, a voice I never knew I had. Without the stylus prying out the notes, I'm no one, spinning in the silent world around my spindle. As the notes unfold, I think that this must be the way a nightingale erupts in song, announcing I exist. My next one, my last one actually, is Van Gogh, Van Gogh's Ear. And it has an epigraph from Van Gogh's letters. Normality is a paved road. It's comfortable to walk, but no flowers grow on it. What else would he be doing besides standing in a dark field, listening to a carillon of stars vibrate in the night sky's vaulted chapel, or wavering in the darkened surface of a river? He'd stumble on the unpaved path, wishing the spirits would be silent. They'd rise in choruses out of the trees, the grass, the thick green stalks of irises and sunflowers, wheat fields after the harvest, trilling like tree frogs, an orchestra of light, impelling him to lay the paint on thick, impasto, to shout in loud blues and yellows from the canvas. The spirits rap on the small drum of his tympanic membrane. He harvested his ear to make it stop. Prophecy is a burden. Thank you. Good to see you.
Very well done, Robbi. Great foreshadowing too with your background. I was wondering if you would read one about Van Gogh's ear.
Well, I did that purposely.
I was thinking about as you were reading your the way that you craft your sentences and stuff. It's very solid and very comforting, like as you're reading. And I reached over for my glass of water here, my trusty glass of water that I always have. and I half expected it to have turned itself into tea. That's the effect that your poetry has when you're reading. It's like this comforting thing, and that's beautiful, really. So I'm so thankful that you read for us this evening. I really am.
Thank you for having me.
Our next poet is Amy Baskin. I believe she's from Portland, Oregon, definitely West Coast. She writes some very powerful poems herself, very rooted in the feminine, the ones that I have heard so far. So I'm curious to see what she reads tonight. Amy, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Sabne. And Robbi, what a pleasure it is to read with you and all the other readers tonight. I'm looking forward to hearing you all as well. I'm very familiar with Robbi's work through Wednesday Night Poetry and through Aeolian Harp, and I love Sabne Raznik's poetry as well through, and was exposed to it through Wednesday Night Poetry. So thank you all, and thank you, David, for keeping the Zoom bombers at bay this evening. So far. Yes, Sabne mentioned that I do like writing and reflecting on the feminine and its view and its viewpoint and its how it manifests in the world. And but tonight I chose, there will be some of that, but I chose some poems that I've been working on and writing over the past 4 or 5 years. And they have to do with, I think, the phenomenal changes that our world and our societies globally and locally are going through, and also my endeavors to remember and retain the value of the people that disagree with me, most of whom are in my family and in Southern Ohio, in Appalachia there, and Indiana and other places that aren't so left coast. So first I'd like to start with a poem that was published recently in the Oregon Poetry anthology entitled Pandemic. And this one is actually about, I wrote it when I heard, sometime around this time last year, I was hearing about the blood clots that affect people that are infected with COVID-19. And I was thinking about blood, and I was thinking about what blood meant to me. And I was thinking about family. So it's called hemostatic derangement, which is actually a medical term that indicates excessive clotting or bleeding. What turns out to be essential in this familiar country is blood. Just say the word, and blood will carry water to you from its own well. Blood wants to be pumping. Too much, you say, but staying silent asphyxiates. Thicker than water, thinner than isopropyl alcohol, blood can overreact. Bunch up its fists, stage a protest on the stairs of your lungs. Block the entrance to your capillaries. You don't even feel it. It can appear asymptomatic, standing there, close talking without a mask. But express your reservations and it will type in all caps on your wall. Fear is just another word for laziness. Explore the notion of therapeutic discomfort. My second poem was published this fall in the Midwest Quarterly. And I wrote it for my beloved grandmother. I wrote it with her in mind and my beloved grandfather. And we never had a problem with not seeing eye to eye politically, and yet they always asked me what my opinion was about things. I would never give it without being asked for it, but they always wanted to know. And I will always forever admire them for that curiosity and for that generosity of spirit that they gave to me, they extended to me. At the assisted living facility in Dearborn, Michigan, November 9th, 2016. I'm not calling you racist, simply devoted to your tribe. You could never hate people you know. Once you know them, they're family. You watch Dr. Abood place her hands on your husband's cheeks and kiss his forehead each time she visits him in memory care. Today is no different. And her hijab? How you smiled when you saw how it matched your scarf this evening. By the end of summer, you held her hands in yours. She called you grandmother. Thank you. The next poem I have is, it was published in Stone Gathering, a Reader in fall 2020. This was dedicated to the memories of George Floyd and to Representative John Lewis, and it's the Black Lives Matter publication. And this one is entitled, Lord, Help Me Be Like the Knitters. There is as much of a chance that the world will end today as there has ever been, and God knows that Shiva's wheel of destruction is spinning full bore right now. But that doesn't stop the 6 ladies at the next table from holding their 2-hour knitting circle this morning at this cafe, rain or shine. All threats and possible endings and Armageddon aside, they actually called in to book the largest table in the coffee house in advance. This is the bravest act I am aware of today. They have their steady gig, their weekly commitment to attendance. This is how to give 0 fucks. Readers sliding down the bridges of each nose, the occasional smartass crack, the furious clack of needles, the skeins of brightly dyed wool. When one falls and rolls across the floor, another calmly leans down to pick up. And this one's on a similar theme. It was in Santa Clara Review, I think in 2019. It's entitled, What I Find at the Pharmacy. Gal in line at the CVS, so proud of her pedicure, prances about, posing on her toes, pleased they're themed to match her ankle tattoos of triquetras and Hecate's circle. Each toe awash in red with black dots, scattered and shellacked. Ladybugs are magic, she claims, and spells it out for us. The number of spots on the back is the number of months that will pass before the world changes again. She laughs a Wiccan's satisfied laugh, makes a stranger bend down to look closely 6 inches away. I think that's weird, obliging a stranger in line to admire her toes, her stinky stubby toes, as if they're the best thing the world has to offer right now. Toes that reflect the colors and shapes of her favorite beetle. One glance at the magazine racks, another at my phone for distraction, and I think maybe those chipped painted toenails are the best thing the world has to offer right now. So I bend down to see them too, and find myself in awe, counting the spots, hoping. See. Thank you. Let's see. I have a few more. This one is called Forgive Me, and it's about the cyclical nature of my mind and time and learning things. Forgive me. I was born naive, thinking growth was linear. I had no idea for the longest time that I would tie double knots in shoelaces, not once in a lifetime, but every morning, then struggle to undo them. Brush teeth before leaving the house, and again after returning, repeating all too often with sighs. I had no idea my heart would fall dormant, impale itself upon dry grass, be raked, bagged, and carted away. Imagine my surprise each time green buds pulse and the throb returns to my chest, wrists, and groin. Death can be cause for celebration with cinnamon and rotting gourds, and birth can enshroud and encase the beginnings within the end. If I was ever told, I couldn't hear. I reach out to you now, not to urge you to believe me, but to ask for mercy. Forgive me for alarming you. When I forget again, take my hand and tell me to look here to remember the layers of feathers we have woven together through rough sticks, the crook of your arm, the nestle. Forgive me for forgetting again and again. 2 more, thanks. This next one is currently available as a broadside from Swim Every Day out of Miami for their National Poetry Month celebrations. So it's entitled Sweet Bay, which is the Magnolia virginiana at the corner of 24th and Stanton in my neighborhood. Stooped like a teenager, shaped like a question mark. Not luscious like your cousins, full-bodied confections, bursty, blowsy Marylands. No, skinny, with once white petals, just past dirty now, but I am not coming to see you. I make my way with eyes closed. Rounding the bend, inhaling, you take the pain away, out from my neck, jaw, and shoulders. Drunk, I wonder how many other passing noses have peeled back their masks, thrust themselves into your low-hanging cups, and I don't even care. Thank you all so much. And this is my last poem for the evening. I wrote it in celebration of my parents receiving the Moderna vaccine a couple of weeks ago, months ago. And I'm just so grateful to that little saint from Tennessee who said, I just felt so proud to have been part of that little seed money that will hopefully grow into something great and help heal this world. So it's entitled If You Want the Rainbow, inspired by Dolly Parton's infinitely wise words. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, you got to put up with the rain. But storms can hit harder than any blow. Just when you need relief, the skies will flow and pummel you with tears and aches and pain. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, kiss your hurts and hug them close. Above all, take it slow and breathe. Losing your shit cannot be called a gain. Your storms can hit harder than any blow. Get wet. Jump in puddles toe to toe. Take a stroll, hand in hand, with me, friend. This is sane. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, thank the rain. It saturates you till you know you cannot get any wetter. Head inside, get dry again, once storms have hit harder than any blow. Towel off, drink tea, cuddle, then work hard and throw aside the fears that you can't take it. Let those wane. The way I see it, if you want the rainbow, no storms hit hard. They're part of getting clean and letting go. Thank you, everyone.
Very well done. Your poems make me laugh sometimes. I think they're supposed to, though, aren't they? And I
Hopefully
also,
the right thoughts.
and I also like the fact, because this is rare, it's difficult to find a well-written poem that also sounds like that's exactly how the poet talks to themselves in their own head. Most of your poems are that way, though. You can tell that you've put work into it and edited and revised and all that, but it still sounds, when you read it, like that's exactly how you talk to yourself in your own head. And that's amazing.
Thank you so much.
That very rarely ever happens. I think it's Christopher McCurry's turn. He does a lot for Kentucky poetry. He runs, I don't know if you guys have heard of this, Lexington Poetry Month. They have their own poetry month in the city of Lexington, Kentucky, which is in June. And he does it, runs a website where you can sign up every June. And for the month of June, you can write poems on it. And if you write so many poems that month, you have a chance to be in the anthology every year. But he can tell you more about that if he wants to. I think they've begun the signups for this year already. Christopher, you have the floor.
Thank you so much. It's nice to meet you all and see the people I do know already again via Zoom. Yeah, Lexington Poetry Month signups are open, and I say as long as you at least know someone from Kentucky, you can sign up for it. So you all are welcome to join us. Lexpomo.com is the website. The challenge is to write 30 poems in the month of June, just like National Poetry Month. But if you post at least 5 to our website, then we will publish at least one of those in our anthology, which I do not have a copy of last year sitting here, but we have 210 poets in this year's anthology, and we usually have around, I guess it's getting close to 300 poets sign up every year, and it's the 9th year. So it's the best place to write online, so please join us. I'm stoked to be reading poems. I picked all new poems that I've never read out loud before to read tonight, just to see if they're any good, because I have no idea. And I'm going to start with a pandemic poem too. It's called Corona Confession Number 1. I high-fived somebody I didn't know. A little boy. He was maybe 6. He had on cowboy boots. He wanted me to do an ollie on my skateboard. I hopped over the flat bar. His eyes bugged. He did that thing kids do when they are pumped, the running, just speed in a random direction. I 180'd over the rail, more running this time, but also with falling. I let him roll around on my skateboard. His dad held his hand. They laughed together. The kid nearly fell. He used his hands to talk about how he wanted the board to move, then held it out into the air for me to slap. And I hesitated. Neither of us were supposed to be here. The sign said, skate park closed. But skaters have a history of ignoring those signs. And when our palms met, he ran off toward home. I have a 9-year-old daughter, and she once said out loud to me and some other people that I was always alone, speaking of my love life. So these are 2 poems that phrase inspired. Always alone too. That's how she describes my love life to me. As if I'm not aware, I sleep on the edge of the king-size bed I bought when her mom left. Near the nightstand, stack of books, a lamp made out of an old headlight from a truck. She knows something of solitude, its mantle, a bit of protection, a bit of warmth. In the morning, she plays Switch on the couch while I sleep. 3 times a day, I bore her by cooking our meals. She'll sit in her room and read or throw a party for all her stuffed animal friends. There's Dottie, Larry, Gilbert, Oakbrook, Cookie Dough, Pellet, Ava, Leonin, Kelly, two foxes both named Sly, Sparkle, Pegasus, and Buckwheat. One afternoon, we host an elaborate dinner with all of their favorite foods. She expects me to speak for each of them in different silly voices. They bicker and bark and hiss and ask for more lemonade and raw meat. At night, after we cuddle and read and say our words, I get in bed and think of everything I could have said that would have made her laugh. This is Always Alone, number 3. Clearly, it had a little bit of an effect on me, this phrase. Always Alone 3. And why not? It's safe. Cold, yes. Silent, that too. Ice, glass, ghost, mirror. How we've come to call creatures who live how we come to call creatures who live cut off from delicate ecosystems we should not disturb with touch, translucent as defense. Tell me our creator doesn't keep a lonely cave in the sky where the only sound is water dense with salt dripping down a rock. Better yet, leave me to drift in the deep end of this world, a dumb creature, blind and see-through, even the guts, even the bones. So I'm not always alone. This is my beautiful girlfriend, Meredith, right here. She's usually like on her own screen, in watching the readings, but we're just like, let's just sit together, even though it's a little awkward, in the background, but this is Meredith. All right. Yeah. So this is sleeping together for the first time. It's work. What with the elbows, knees, hands, too many keys, not enough locks, too much dark, not enough room on the porch of the pillow. It's not like the movies. Pick a lock, break a sweat, you mess up, have to start over with the first pin, the scooting closer, arm pushed under head, lips pressed to the boyish hairs of summer on the neck, throw the leg back between the thighs, lean, roll, the pressure's wrong. If it were easy, beds would be smaller. The practice of staying close, unlocking the door to a lifetime, stealing into a home. This one's called Glove. Your fingers on mine, slightly shorter. You don't know I'm measuring for fit, for comfort, for control. When I fit into you later that night, not for the first time, but we are timid and nervous, like it is our first time. I think of you throwing the ball, soft thud of leather as it lands in the pad of my palm, the rhythm of back and forth. What I love about fluid motion, transfer of energy, absorption of my fastball in your hand, scooping the grounder from the grass, finding the pace again. Once we have it, we can talk like this is something we do every day. Like later, we won't be sore. This one is called When I Forget to Look at You. Will you effervesce? Will you plume? Will you sprout wings from the nested eggs of your spine? Will you say, look here, mister, are you going to stand all night at that damn sink? Does the dirty dishwater keep your hands warm? When I forget to look, will you salivate? Will you articulate your claws? Will you sit patiently on the counter with your legs slowly grinding out some sweet song? Will you say, look here, come to bed, let me eat you? I think I have just 3 more. This is love number 4. Notice me, working quietly to serve you. Fall for silence. Not much more than a pile of dirty dishes, an unswept floor. Hold me like I'm warm from the dryer, inside out, and needing my wrinkles rubbed smooth. It's hard to love a chore, but do it every day, and your hands become practice. All right. This one's called A Blessing, Apocrypha. I try to write these poems about this storm god. So some of them are good, some of them are mediocre, and some of them are not good. I'm hoping this is one of the good ones. The storm god took a mortal man as lover. By all accounts, he was average, nothing exceptional. He liked to count, to catalog, collect. He inventoried every part of her, each ridge of her teeth, all the folds of her flesh. It took his whole life to number the drops of her from one single surprise summer rainstorm. He liked to say she must have known the exact moment she had slipped from his mind. So if you were at the park on an otherwise perfectly sunny day, no chance of rain, when a drop lands on your back, runs down your hand, then more spit and splatter until you have to seek shelter or get soaked, it's a blessing for your love life, a reminder to think of all the parts of your lover and strive to know them all. All right, this is my last one, and it is called Parallel Universe. She says my name. She says my name to get my attention. She says my name at the end of a sentence to punctuate her argument. She says my name. I'm a puppy. I wag my tail. She says my name in Spanish. She says my name, no, yells it when it is time to come home at dark. She says the fake name I gave her. She says my name, but I hate when she says it. She says my name on repeat. She says a shortened version of my name. She says my name sounds pretty white. She says my name and wants to know if I have time to take a brief survey. She says my name in a whisper. She says my name when she comes. She doesn't say my name. She doesn't know my name. She says my name when my order is ready. She says my name like a simple question that is easy to answer. She says my scientific name. She says the only nickname that ever stuck. She says my name because I have no power here. She says my name so it's not forgotten. She shouts my name in the streets. She says my name telepathically. Hot feet, a hand in my leg hair, pain in my lower back. She says her name because she's tired of saying mine. Thank you all.
That last poem, was that your girlfriend or your 9-year-old daughter?
Yeah, well, I think a girlfriend for that one.
I was wondering because children will do that. They'll say your name so many times, you're like, I'm going to change my name because I don't like it.
Yeah, and I was thinking for that poem is just maybe all the versions and all the bunch of female people. Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry I didn't get to talk to you much, or Leatha for that matter, before the program started, because both of you do so much work for poetry in Kentucky, and all of the poets in Kentucky are so much in debt to you, and I'm so thrilled to have you both here. And that was the most pleasant guinea pig experience I can remember. But let's be honest, we all do that to each other, don't we? Because you never really know how a poem is going to fly until you read it out loud. And I really liked that one about your 9-year-old daughter, where you were naming off all her toys. And I mean, that was something I could relate to, because I grew up in a family where I had a little sister that I was 13 years old when she was born. And she always said it was more like having two mommies instead of an older sister. So I got to watch her grow up like that and experience her childhood like that. And so I can relate to all that. And I really enjoyed that one. Leatha, I think it's your turn. Thank you so much.
All right. Thank you, Sabne. This is amazing. I am just so happy to be able to be here reading with you all tonight. It's a treat. And getting to hear Robbi and Amy and Christopher but you know, it's just like, I just want to keep being in the audience, you know, maybe I'll just hang out here. But I did bring some poems to share, and I really appreciate the aesthetic of AvantAppalachia because of the invitation to experiment and to kind of push the boundaries of what poems can do. So the first couple poems I'm going to read are sort of in that vein, and I didn't want to try to share a screen, but I printed out some things because this poem is one of the poems in And Luckier, my book that came out from Katerina's Accents Publishing last year. And it's one of the poems that took me the longest time to accomplish, not necessarily to write, because I wanted the poem on the page to be part of the content. And this is the kind of experimentation that I really appreciate in other poets. So I don't know if you could see that what I was hoping to have there is something of the effect of a double helix. So this is the poem. It's called Domicile. House of water, bone and cell, terra mostly incognita, more microbe than me, turning on its gut, kept sensate by God knows what bright wick at its core. In every room, a spiral staircase, a scaffold spun of touches into joining. It grows new being in a warm and inward sea. Cytoplasmic sac we're stitched into, so long as breath threads us here. Country past whose borders it's impossible to stray. I've always been fascinated by the way that the body is our first house. I mean, it's our domicile, it's our abode, and we carry it, or it carries us, you know, through space like a planet. And we're constantly coming into contact with alien beings, like the coronavirus, another being trying to make its way on the planet as well, looking to hitch a ride for a temporary place to live. And if it trashes the place in the process, it doesn't really mind, because that's not what it's about. But I saw an article. I've written a lot of Corona poems, like all of us, and some of them about the virus itself. But the thing that got me going on this one is this image that I saw in an article in the New York Times that was an interview with Nathan Algren, assistant professor of biology at Clark University, who he made 3D printed models of what proteins do in viruses and how they interact with human cells. And he said a virus is made up of two main things: a protein shell and genetic material. So I thought, well, heck, COVID is a traveling salesman, basically. So this is my poem, and this is still in process. I'm trying to make it, the traveling salesman, sort of look like a spherical virus, but I'm not quite there yet. But anyway, here's the poem. COVID-19 traveling salesman. He's carrying a suitcase. He is, in fact, a suitcase, nothing more. A bag not of bones, but of DNA. He carries himself forward in a tangle, stranded genes looped and heaped like yarn, like spaghetti, inside his single cellular wall. He lives to loose himself into the fortresses of us, into our cells, whatever walls he can find to breach, and replicate himself in nose or lung, bathed in the life we've gathered in service of our life and thought and breath. It's what his stealth would steal to make his offspring possible. So the body as house, I realized when I was putting my collection together that I had a lot of poems that were about houses one way or another. And I thought about it, you know, at a certain point, we have this body that's carrying us, and this house sort of turns into a fixer-upper. if you know what I mean. And if we're lucky, we get a chance to remodel, maybe replace a few things. And so I've had that experience. Some of us are going around with replacement parts. And this poem is called Ode to My Left Knee. And it's really in honor of all of the caregivers, the doctors, the scientists, and everybody who make it possible for us to keep going, maybe past what our sell-by date would be. So here it is. Ode to my left knee, who took me dancing Wednesday night, who leapt, cavorted, as though no one noticed. Oh, metal falseness. Oh, invisible prosthesis. Oh, feared addition to a scarred and scalpeled body. I greet you with the first light, warm under quilts and sheet, testing my limbs. And oh, old severed knee, disappeared, who ran in pastures, raced ahead and always fell in the same spots. Oh, knee I wore until you would not work, knee of blotched white scars, because I was that running child, because in middle age, chemo robbed my feet of feeling. So still I fell and fell. Forgive me that I do not know where they took you when they sawed you off. Forgive your brutal and precise excision, your no doubt ignominious disposal. In some landfill or incinerator, the ghost of you calls to my gone breast. My hips they took so I could walk again. Oh, knee of now. Oh, dear flesh, rushing down Atlantic Avenue, heedless, forgetting to be grateful. More than mere glue and gravity must cause this flesh to embrace you, this bone to claim your joinery. Oh, leg made new, and not without those weeks of searing pain, those days the body tried to throw you out, even as I sweet talked you, be mine, be mine. Oh, healed knee. Oh, mystery of the urge to be whole. If I am lucky, I will wear you out as well. Huzzah. That poem was so good to be able to write. It really, I needed to be able to say that. A big thank you. So there are a lot of poems in my book about houses, and I want to read one of them. It's a little bit different take on house. It's the aspect of the house that is that's what holds us in, holds us back, sort of the house as a prison, maybe some days. Sort of maybe more likely, maybe better said, a trap for some of us who, women in particular, wives and mothers and husbands who have to keep the place as well, fathers. So this poem is named for, that takes its title from the magazine House Beautiful. House Beautiful. The twigs of every bush along the walk, every stick of furniture in rooms flat and glassy as Narcissus pool, each vase and lamp and magazine arranged with a casual precision. Casual precision, an oxymoron, ought to be a clue. Step in too far, the net contracts. You're set to be digested by architectural digest stream rooms dissolved into house. Shelter as dress, evolution of the hearth, the hot red maw that ground women's lives, masticated hours and days, thought lost to keeping, escapes small and close, nursing a child, a garden, sometimes needlework at the evening window. The years dissolve, perhaps the heavy gloss of a magazine. I want to read a new poem that I just have written in the past few weeks. And again, like Christopher, it's great to be able to try these out. So this poem is called Gravity, sort of another body poem in a way. Gravity. We can't explain gravity, though we track it down to the subatomic level, though we dissect weak attractors and pick our way into the disappearing heart of matter. It sticks everything together. Coffee, me orbiting the heart of our long marriage, Solly waking up to the last day of the last week of school, each grandchild a planet spun off and shining in orbits invisible, elliptical. My feet under the desk, the weight of the suitcases we drag to the car, the drag on the tires, the grip that takes us where our children are. It's in our knees and feet breaking down, our diminished height as we settle toward the earth coming in for some final landing. We don't even know how aspirin works, though that willow tree whose bark first offered relief is thousands of years gone. Maybe this sag of meat on bone is somehow too a hologram. Waves of energy shimmered into what we've mistaken for solid flesh. Oh, but I know the ache of being a body, the eager thrust toward a beloved other, the slow light of your smile when we wake. So I'm going to read a couple more poems. I've been thinking a lot about shelter, especially in the months that have passed, and even in the years lately, how precarious shelter is, and how hard we can work to get it, and how quickly it can be gone. So this poem speaks to that, and it's called "How to Go On." I think what I want is, well, how to go on. Someone is building a cardboard house over a grate, an office building down the street, a lean-to in a tent city, a backyard shed for mowers, a room built of a gaze, two pairs of eyes, tented by a jacket where two sleep on the ground. Only one more night, she whispers, hoping that is true. Someone is picking up the pieces of the ruined house on the bombed street in Syria, in Baghdad, in the Afghan village after the suicide bomb, on an island after the storm. But these are rocks, these thoughts, these fragments of what I want to build, of what was here, is dreamed. The unbroken sidewalk, the lighted window, the beds not in metal cages, the table in a single kitchen, the food on the plate. I'm hoisting one word at a time. I am speaking to the ones in charge. I am saying, so much suffering, we cannot uncause it, but we can set ourselves to mend. We can say, this is not the way to build a world. I will pick up the rubble. I will carry one stone at a time. Thank you. I want to read two more poems. One's really short, and then I'll be done. This poem, I realize that we cast ourselves out far more often than we are ever cast out by other things. And in Lexington Poetry Month, I think it was in 2013, I was trying to write a poem a day, and these words came to me, and I put them down, and they looked like this. And I thought, I am going to say that's a poem. And it's in my book. Other people thought it was a poem. And I want to thank Christopher McCurry for the Lexington Poetry Month challenge, and to say to everybody, sign up if you can. It's a wonderful thing to try to do. And this is my very short poem entitled Eviction. Most of what I lost, I took from myself. And I'm going to close with the poem that's the first poem in And Luckier. And it is what usually casts us out and pushes us apart. And so I'm going to close with Your Fear. And thank you all so much for this opportunity. Your fear. Now ask yourself, who might it serve that you would grow downhearted? What do you choose to see? What will your seeing make? The news selected and relayed, mirrored and soon 1 billion times its weight, weighs on the mind that seeks it out. What is the new? The breath just drawn, the thought not yet enfleshed, the kind word being said, the stars that press unseen overhead. It is the unforeseen upon which Poe said we must calculate most largely. Impossible to separate misery and joy, the living edge of mystery. Time's unfolding dauntless holds you dear. The universe has no need of your fear. Thank you all.
My goodness, you're just so delightful. This might be too enthusiastic, but I just want to reach through and give you a hug.
I'll take it. I'll take it.
I'm so glad to finally get to, well, it's still virtually, but I feel like I finally got to meet you.
Yeah, me too.
Work. I enjoyed your experiments. That's funny when you held that up and said, I decided I'm just going to call this a poem. And I was sitting here thinking, it's a poem. It works. It's a poem. But then the whole idea behind AvantAppalachia is that I could see that there was a lot of poets in Appalachia who were writing experimental poetry, but they didn't have a place to publish it. And so I thought, see a need, fill a need. And so that's where that whole thing came from, because it was definitely going on. There was just no outlet for it. And then to find out that you've also been doing it just thrills me. And I liked your poems too about the body as a house. I think when you are, when you're disabled, a disabled person, or you have developed that over time, because let's face it, everybody will eventually become disabled over time. You come to appreciate your body in a way that you're not able to when you're able-bodied and you're young and it works like it's supposed to. And there are things about it that you don't even notice until you don't have them anymore. And so those poems, I think, are very important in that way, because it causes the able-bodied readers stop and think about those aspects of their body that they would never think about otherwise. And they'd be like, oh yeah, well, that is rather wonderfully made, isn't it? Yeah. And it's important to have those moments to call you back, to be grateful for what you have while you still have it, instead of in the moment when it's already gone. I think that's important. And I thank you so much for joining us this evening.
Thank you for the chance. It was wonderful.
All of our poets tonight were fabulous. We have had a fabulous evening. Dave, originally his idea was, he brought his fiddle with him, and his original idea was he was going to give us some entry music as we came in, but we were having technical difficulties getting everything to work for everybody to sign into the meeting. Are you still willing to give us a little bit of music, Dave?
I'll give you an intro. How's that?
Okay.
Thank you, everyone. No. That's enough of that.
Thank you. Well, I think he has a show tomorrow in the park, he said. So he's got to do some practicing anyway, he said.
Practice. Need a lot.
Anyway, I thank you all again for joining us, and I hope that you enjoyed the evening too, and I hope to see you the next time we have a reading. You guys have a good evening.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you so much. What a delight. Thank you.